Hello again, and welcome to the second Monday lesson of EUSDS's Semester 1 2020 season. I hope you've had a good week, and especially if you're one of our fresher students, I hope that you've enjoyed settling into the university in the slightly strange way that you're doing so now, and I hope it's proving to be a lot of fun, even with the restrictions we're having to work under. I'm taking it for granted that if you've come to this lesson, you've already looked at our lesson 1. If you haven't, may I please recommend that you do so. There are two reasons for this. One reason is that this lesson is going to build on lesson 1, and in particular, there's something in lesson 1, there's a stroll that we learned, and if you don't know that, you won't be able to join in with the first part of this lesson. The other reason is that in lesson 1, we cover some other things, including a very quick sketch of what we're here for at all, and including things like our accessibility policy for people with disabilities and similar issues. So if you could go back to have a look at lesson 1, please, if you haven't already done so, and then come to this one and be as welcome as everybody is who has already studied lesson 1. Okay, so it's time to start dancing. Most of this week's lesson is going to concentrate on new steps towards partnered collegiate shag, and it's going to concentrate on improvisation. But before we get on to that, let's do the EUSDS stroll together from last week, which was the one to Sunny Side of the Street. Drop. Drop. Lunge. Lunge. Slow. Before we start with this week's steps, I want to focus on an aspect of the music which informs the way that we put steps together. I'm going to play the music that we'll be using for that stroll, and I'm going to start counting the beats, or rather not counting them, but marking them just by moving my arm up and down. So you can see me moving down, up, down, up, down, up. Do it along with me. Hopefully you can feel that the down beats are stronger. Okay, so that gives an idea that in this sort of jazz music, there are 2 beat units. There is a strong beat and a weaker beat. And you can call them the downbeat and the upbeat. Lots of people say that. Or if you're a numbers person and we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4 and so forth, then it'll be the odd beats that are down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, for example. If you're a musician and you're aware of time signatures and you'd like me to have used a slightly different way of moving my arms, sorry, but I only want to focus on the 2-beat structure and not larger structures at the moment. And something you may have been aware of when we were learning the stroll is that we were also thinking in 2-beat units. So everything that I was telling you, I never really told you to do something which was a single beat. It was always at least 2 beats long. And some of what we did have that feeling of strong, weak, strong, weak. Let me show you. I'll just move the camera down a little bit so you can see my feet better. So if we go back to the original, the very beginning of the stroll, where we went forward, catch, forward, tap, then you can see the step forward is happening on the strong beat, strong. The catching up is kind of weak, strong forward. The tap is kind of weak. So in terms of this, we have our strong, weak pairing, or in numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. And similarly going back, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm mirror reversing as usual, by the way, which is why I was heading off that way. And this idea about having 2-beat units is really important in this sort of dance. And almost everything that we think about, we're thinking in units that are certainly no shorter than 2 beats. And what we're going to do now is a simple exercise where we do something strong and weak to make a 2-beat unit. And what we're going to do, if you have all of your weight on, I'm going to mirror reverse, if you have all of your weight on your right foot, then what we will do is we will step on the left foot and flick your spare foot forward, and then step on that and flick your new spare foot forward. Now, we've already done flicks before. They were part of the, in the stroll, we had our flick down, and then we also had our tap, flick, etc. What we're doing now is where, I'll turn my back on you so we get rid of the mirror thing. What we're doing now is with the weight on this right foot, I'm going step, flick, okay? Do it with me. So our weight's on the right foot, 5, 6, 7, 8, step, flick. I should say something about stance, and this is a near universal around swing dance. We may slightly adjust it for particular dances, but what I'm going to tell you is pretty much universal. The way that I'm standing, I'm going to take my jacket off again. The way that I'm standing, at the moment I'm standing just kind of normally with my weight on a flat foot, which is not the way that we stand to dance, but I'm just starting from a neutral position. And then the way that I'm going to bend my knees as I roll my weight forward onto the front of my foot. So I'm going to exaggerate this. I'm going to exaggerate it too much so that you can see it at this distance. It will be like this. So I'm bending my knees forward, which is lifting my heels eventually off the ground. What you normally do is soften your knees and take them forward so that the weight's on the front of your foot and your heels are either just touching the ground but almost weightlessly, or are just lifting off the ground. Okay? That's the normal stance, and that will make all of these flick things easier. The other part of the stance, which you can't see, is that the muscles of your core are engaged. So I mean your abdominal muscles here, the muscles of your pelvic floor. It's not that they're engaged in the kind of tense way, but they're just engaged. You're not kind of all floppy. These muscles are just kind of gently engaged to make you not rigid, but just firm rather than floppy. Exactly the same should be true of you just walking or standing up, but you're sort of not our problem as dance teachers when you're doing that. Whereas when you're dancing, then it is sort of my job to tell you that. So just make sure that you've slightly engaged these muscles. In other words, you're pulling your tummy in very, very slightly. Again, somebody wouldn't see it. You can just feel that they're engaged. The same with the pelvic floor. Generally, women know how to find their pelvic floor. If men don't, drop me an email and I will explain. Okay? Right, because it's quite chilly, I'm going to get my jacket on again and then we'll get on with the dance. Okay, so I'll turn my back to you again. And what we're going to do without music first is just be going step, flick, step, flick, step, flick, step, flick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Join in. 5, 6, 7, 8. Step, flick, step, flick, step, flick, step, flick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. I'm counting because I'm switching to counting beats, and you're getting the idea that the steps are on the odd numbers, which are the down beats, and the flicks are on the even numbers, which are the up beats. I'm going to find some music so we can do that simple exercise together.
The bitter patter of the rain on my window, like footsteps on the wall, remind me you're far as I wait for your nod.
Notice my upper body
Of the air,
isn't bouncing much. If I turn myself sideways,
outside my bedroom wall,
you can see that in principle I can balance something on my hip quite easily. I'm not doing sort of 70s pogo. I was alive in the 70s, I never want to see it again. We're just going
the porch light
so the upper body is, you can
from
figure out what
nightfall until dawn.
that's just an example
Out
of
on
preparation.
the morning dew for any sign of you.
We're really concentrating
Quiet
on the feet.
moving of the floor that I'm pacing. Echoes
I
my
should say credits for all of the musical tracks will appear at the end of the lesson as usual. That was a very slow piece. I'm now going to move on to something with a little bit more pace, but we're going to do exactly the same thing.
PFC, the CPL, SGT, the LT, CP, the OD, the MP makes you do cat beat. It's a G.I. jive. Man alive. It starts with a bugle blowing reveille over your bed when you arrive. Hey, Jack, that's a G.I. jive. Roodly toot, jump in your suit, make a salute.
Okay, I realise you may think this class is going slowly, but we are actually doing useful things here. Something which is worth bringing up now. I mentioned earlier that when I'm doing this, my upper body is more or less still. My head certainly isn't really moving at all. You can see there's a tiny bit of sway in my hips as I change balance. If I choose to use my arms, I can get rid of almost all of that as well. If you're finding that you are swaying around, it's probably because you're dancing with your legs like this. If I start doing this, then this is bound to make my body move, because obviously if I'm standing here and now I'm going to have to transfer my weight here, then my body has to move. If I want it to be stupidly still, then I would imagine I'm on an extremely narrow plank, and I'd be keeping my legs really exactly underneath me. We normally dance with our legs about hip distance apart, so they're just going straight down, and that gives a very slight sway, which can be useful when we're partner dancing to communicate. I'm not driving, whatever slight sway is here, I'm not driving it through thought. That's just an emergent property of the way my body's moving. Okay, I'm going to turn around again, we'll put the same music on and just dance this again, and then we'll go on. We'll just let you go.
PFC, the CPL, SGT, the LT, CP, the OD, the MP makes you do cat beat. It's a G.I. jive. Man alive. It starts with a bugle blowing reveille over your bed when you arrive. Hey, Jack, that's a G.I. jive. Roodly toot, jump in your suit, make a salute. Arrivoot.
Okay, so if you remember, we got into doing this because I was talking about the strong beats and the weak beats. We reminded ourselves in Wade in the Water, we had our strong, weak, and we just used that in a simple way of going strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. But also in Wade in the Water, we weren't always doing that. Sometimes we just went step, 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 step. They were decorated as step, 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 if you remember, but that was just stepping on every beat. So we have a choice now between either going strong, weak, or going step, step. Now, we're not going to take single steps. That would be, as I said, keep everything in your head in 2-beat units, a strong, weak unit. Or boom, ching, you may hear the music saying, particularly with some kind of music. So we'll always be thinking of either doing a step and a decoration, which takes 2 beats, 1, 2, or we'll be thinking of doing 2 steps, 1, 2. Which foot you start with doesn't matter. I could just as easily have said step, decorate, and 2 steps, 1, 2. It doesn't matter which foot you start on, it really doesn't. Some people get very het up about that because of different ways of teaching partner dance, but we're just letting all of that go. We don't need it now. And by the time you do need it when we're doing partner dance, you'll know such a lot that using the correct foot will be an utterly trivial thing to add on to what you know. So what we're going to do now is dance a little pattern, and for the moment we're going to do something which will involve you using both feet both ways. Let me explain. If I do step, step, so let me turn my back to you, it's easier. Well, it's easier for you, I think. If I do step, step, so I'm going to start step and my weight's starting on my right and then going to go left, right, then my weight is in the same place. So I can do this step, 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 the same way indefinitely. If on the other hand I do step, flick, then my weight has now become on the left foot. So it started with my weight on the right, I then went left, flick, and now my weight is still on the left. So whatever I do next, it's going to have to start with the step on the right. And we were doing, of course, step, flick. So that means if I've, say, done a left, right, step, 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 and then I do a step, flick, if I want to do another step, step, then it will have to be right, left. And then what would naturally follow if we're going to do the step, flick, which we're going to do just for now, is to go right, flick. So our whole pattern is going to look like this. It doesn't matter which foot you start on. I'm randomly going to start calling one foot pattern. If you did the exact mirror reverse, it wouldn't matter, because you'll meet them both in succession. So what we're going to do is to go step, 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 flick, step, 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 flick. We're going to repeat that little 4-beat unit over and over, but every time you do it, it'll switch to a different beginning with the left or beginning with the right every time you do it. So it's going to go left, right, flick, right, flick, left, right, flick, right, flick. You don't have to think in terms of left and right. It's always the free foot. The rule, I told you in lesson 1, we almost never stand the way I'm dancing now with my weight on both feet. We'll always stand with the weight firmly on one foot and the other one clearly free. And always move the free foot. Okay, that's a kind of pretty much a golden rule of dancing. Which foot do I move? The one that's free. I'm going to put the music on again. Let's dance that pattern.
SGT, the LT, CP, the OD, the MP makes you do cat beat. It's a G.I. jive. Man of mine, it starts with a bugle blowing reveille over your bed when you arrive. Hey, Jack, that's a G.I. jive. Roodly toot, jump in your suit, make a salute. Arrivoot. After you wash and dress, more or less, you go get your breakfast from a beautiful little cafe they call the Mess. Hey, Jack, when you convalesce out of your seat into the street, make with your feet or read.
Okay, so far we've learned two very simple patterns. One of them is our strong, weak, where we flick for the weak, and the other one goes strong, weak with a step on both, so it equalises them step, step. And we just strung together a pretty arbitrary combination. I chose the combination just because I knew it would force you to switch which foot you're doing something on. But we could do other combinations. So for example, I could, for example, do something like step, 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 flick, step, flick, step, 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 flick, step, flick. Or I could decide I'm actually bored of step, steps. So I could do something like, so I'm going to start with them, but then I'll decide I'm bored. So it's going to be step, 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 flick, step, flick, step, flick, because I'm bored of step, step, so I just want to keep the flicks going. And then eventually I'll get bored of flicks. Step, flick, step, flick, step, 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 step. Okay, getting bored of steps now. Step, flick, step, flick, step, flick, step, flick, and so on. Or you can do other patterns. So for example, you can do something like step, 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 flick, step, flick, step, 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 flick, step, flick, step, 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 flick, step, flick. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to put music on again, and this time, I'm going to dance sort of slightly random patterns, but the idea is not to copy me. The idea is you will do step, step sometimes, step, flick sometimes, and it's totally up to you when you do them. This is the beginning of improvising. Swing dance is jazz dance, and the very heart of jazz is improvisation. So improvisation, just as with the musicians, there is a framework. It's not completely randomly hitting notes on a piano the way that a wild animal who broke into a music room might. But there's a framework, but within the framework, they're improvising. We have a framework. We have these, right now we have these two little units. We have our step, step, and we have our step, flick. But you're improvising about when to use them. I'll put the music on again.
PFC, the CPL, the SGT, the LT, CP, the OD, the MP makes you do cat beat. It's a G.I. jive, man of mine. It starts with a bugle blowing reveille over your bed when you arrive. Hey, Jack, that's a G.I. jive. Roodly toot, jump in your suit, make a salute. I reboot after you wash and dress, more or less. You go get your breakfast from a beautiful little cafe they call the Mess. Hey, Jack, when you convalesce out of your seat into the...
I'm not sure he liked the army very much. Are you? I'm going to put a different piece of music on. We're going to do the same thing, and then I'll show you a little bit more about styling.
Like Beelzebub at my ear.
You may have recognised that was the same band as our first piece, the End Time Spasm Band, who are a fairly modern band. The GI Jive piece you heard comes back from the 1940s, and that's Louis Jordan. So, I'll again show you a little bit about decorations. At the moment, our steps, we've just been doing them as step, step. So if I turn sideways onto you, it's just been step, step with no particular decoration. Something you can do, if the music isn't too fast for you, is as you step, shoot the spare foot out forward. So I'm just going step, and the foot's coming out forward. This is different. This is different from step, flick. Those were two different beats. 1, 2. Here we're going 1, and it's the same thing. Step and shoot forward at the same time. So it would be, if we did 2 of them, it would be 1, 2. If we did lots, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Notice that I'm not bouncing very much as I'm doing this. Because my knees are bent, it's fairly easy for me to go like this, and to keep swapping what's going on with my feet without a huge amount of body movement. I'm not going boom, boom, boom. Okay, it's not that. I'm sitting with these bent legs, and this can happen with very little going on in the upper body. So if we do our original pattern that went step, 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 flick, step, 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 flick, the first way we did it, the way we were doing it together before, looked like step, 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 flick, step, 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 flick. So it will be step, step, flick. Yes? See the idea? Let's put the music on. Okay, so you can choose whether to decorate or not. I'll face you this time because which foot you use doesn't matter. 6, 7, 8.
Like Beelzebub at my ear. The words you speak aren't the same as the message. I'm getting loud and clear. You pass that local river, like the ice cream man on my street. And all the while you think you're clever, as if I couldn't keep my feet. Scheme and plot the numbers till they come out right. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay, I'm going to mention one extra styling point for the other move that you know, but this is something which I'm not expecting you to get straight away. This is a kind of homework to practice. So if I turn sideways to you again, at the moment, when we've been doing step, flick, the flick has only been going forward. So it's step, and this foot from where it was only going forward, like this. Step, flick, step, flick. Something we can do to bring a little bit more style into this is that as you do the step, shoot that foot backwards a little and then take it forward. So which will become step, flick, step, flick, step, step, flick, 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 step, flick. If I show it forwards, step, flick, step, flick, step, flick, step, flick. So you can see there's a little going backwards first. I'll show you these one after the other. I'll do a one on each foot with the simple form that we learnt at the beginning of this class, and one on each foot with the one I've just shown you. So 2 of each. So it will be step, flick, step, flick, step, flick, step, flick. And I think you can see the second form has got a bit more life to it. I'll do 4 of each now, just because it gives more chance to seeing it. So step, flick, 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 step, flick. It's completely optional, and it's the kind of thing I think you only get when you practice. So just as you're practicing all of this stuff to music, add it on as an exercise. We'll do one more little thing, and this is again going to be using the feeling of strong beats and weak beats. So at the moment, in Wade in the Water, we had that sort of moving forward on a diagonal. We sort of went step, catch, step, catch. And we'll use that same idea here, so we can move sideways. So I can step sideways and my weight is kind of fully over this leg. This one is trailing and weightless. Catch up and transfer the weight. Step, catch up, step, catch up. If I go the other way, you can see that this has the effect. It's a kind of lopsided. There's clearly a leading foot and a lagging foot. A sort of lead, lag, lead, lag, lead, lag. If I go the other way, lead, lag, lead, lag, lead, lag. Try not to exaggerate this massively like this. My body's still upright, but the point is that my weight, as I've done the lead, I can definitely have the lagging foot free. As I do the lead, lag, I now have the leading foot free, but I'm only just in balance because my weight is still going that way quite a lot. If I take this foot off the ground, I'm in danger of tottering that way eventually, because my weight's biased in the direction I'm going. Lead, catch, lead, catch, lead, catch. So that's another thing that we can do. It's got the same kind of timing as step, step, because you are actually, I mean, it is a step, step, but it's a biased step, step to give a strong lead and a weak catch up. So if we add that in, let's, for example, let's do something just as an exercise. I'm going to turn my back to you. Just as an exercise, we're going to do this. We're going to go step, flick, step, flick, step, 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 catch, step, catch, step, catch. Okay, just that. You will need space to your left if you start on the left foot, and that's what we're going to do. My weight is on my right foot. 5, 6, 7, 8. Step, flick, step, flick, step, 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 catch, step, catch, step, catch. You'll notice at the end that your left foot is free, so you could start the whole thing again. I can't do this more than about 1.5 times without running out of space. But you may have more space. Let's do it together. Starting with your weight on the right foot. 5, 6, 7, 8. Step, flick, step, flick, step, 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 catch, step, catch, step, catch, step, flick, step, flick, step, 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 catch, step, catch, step, catch. Sorry, I did warn you, I'd have to stop. Okay, what we're going to do, I'll put some music on again, and you've now got 3 different things. You have your step, step, decorated if you want, or not decorated. If all of this is getting a bit like this, and there are too many things going on, forget the decorations, they can come later. So you've got that, and then you've got the step, flick, flick, and then you've got the step, catch, sideways. The step, catch, by the way, are called shuffles. So I'm going to put some music on and just play with these. I'm going to dance in a bit of a diagonal to give myself space. Start with what you want.
Like Beelzebub at my ear. The words you speak aren't the same as the message, which I'm getting loud and clear. You pass that loco river, like the ice cream man on my street. And all the while you think you're clever, as if I couldn't keep my feet. Scheming, plot the numbers, till they come out right. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Sunday comes the paper with the headline loud and true. If you think you're gonna win me over, I think you better get a clue. street. And all the while you think you're clever, as if I couldn't keep my feet.
Okay, so the idea is to play these pieces of music, and there are links to them at the end of the class, to play them in your own time and just play in the sense of practicing doing these moves in any order you like. Just before we finish, I'm going to put on some slightly faster music so you can get the feel of that. It's not nightmarishly fast, it's just got a little bit more life.
I's a muggin' boom. We's a muggin' boom. I's a muggin' boom. Da doo doo bap boo bap doo. I's a muggin' boom. We's a muggin' bang. I's a muggin' boom. Bebop, 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 bebop. Nobody knows just how it started. Somebody blew it through a horn. Somebody played it on the fiddle. Somebody sang it and a song was born. Now it's the craze, the new sensation. It's the song, the bands all swing. Now it's the phrase that rocks the nation. Don't try to stop me, cause I'm gonna sing. I's a muggin' boom. We's the muggin' bang. I's a muggin' boom. Boo bop dee bop boo bop dee ho.
Okay, that's the end of the Learning New Steps part of this class. You may have found this week a little bit more difficult or a little bit more frustrating to learn than last week. Last week, what we were doing was learning something complete. We were learning a very defined set of steps to the EUSDS stroll, and when you'd learned the steps and you were doing them in the exact defined order, then you were doing the EUSDS stroll, and well done. This time we've been doing something different. This time we've been moving right into the core of jazz, which is improvisation. And I've been teaching you three sort of specific tools, specific steps, our step, step, whether plain or decorated, our step, flick, whether straight out or whether with that little prep, and our shuffle. Those three little tools that you can string together, all of them are 2 beats long, but you can string them together in any way you want to when you're following these dances. And that means that you're having to kind of work a lot harder, and your brain is having to do a lot more work. But keep practicing, because you will start to feel structures in the music and realise, oh, the music's just changed. It's kind of going a very kind of gentle umpity, umpity, umpity. So perhaps that would be a good time to do this. Or, it's reached the dull bit. So perhaps I'm just going to stay doing this until something interesting happens, when I'll start doing something more interesting. Again, the jazz music police are not going to arrest you if you take some unusual decisions about what to do when. Just practicing is the best way to learn. What I'm doing is preparing you very much for solo jazz, because just having a vocabulary of things to do, listening to music and choosing ones to do, that's the core of solo jazz. But also, what we've just been doing is key footwork for partner dance, particularly a partner dance that was really popular in the universities of the 30s and 40s called collegiate shag. And I'm just going to finish by showing you a few short clips of people who are dancing collegiate shag, either in a solo way, exactly the way that we have, or in a partnered way. I'm doing this just again to provide you with some reassurance that what we're doing now with this sort of probably fairly hard work in learning new things, it really is heading right towards the kind of dances that I hope you want to do. Okay, here are the clips.